Welcome to the Financial Armor Show. My name is Brad Cooper, the president of Cooper Financial Investments, and I want to welcome my special co-host, Jaclyn. How are you doing today?
Oh, I am fantastic, Brad. You would not believe this weekend we had 78 degrees weather.
That is
Woo!
crazy. Now, keep in mind for the listeners, this is Minnesota. Last week when we were
Yes.
talking, you had what, 78 inches of snow?
Yes. We went from 2 feet of snow to 78 degrees in a matter of a week.
That is crazy.
That's wild.
Well, so you're enjoying a little bit of sunshine, which we are down here in Arizona as well. Very excited. So I will be coming up to Minnesota to speak to a group of advisors in a training meeting. So I want to make sure you keep that 70 to 80
Okay.
degree temperatures there and keep the snow out.
Okay.
Because,
I'll at least try to keep the sunshine for you.
yes. Well, thank you, Jaclyn. I am so excited. We had an opportunity to talk right before, the show here, and I am so excited about our guest today and the knowledge and the wisdom this is going to provide to our listeners. So, I encourage everyone listening to take notes. If you're driving, pull over, take notes, and we're going to go through a very important topic. But before we get started, I want to introduce our amazing guest today, by the way, who will be a speaker at our upcoming event. So let me just plug that real quick because we're having an amazing empowerment of women and husbands too, if you're married, but we're having 3 guest expert women speakers on different topics. And Terri has decided to take the time out of her busy schedule and be one of these speakers. So I want to bring in and introduce and welcome Terri Werner, who is the Director of Business Development at Aegis Healthcare. Welcome, Terri. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule today to visit with us.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an important topic to talk about. That planning is so important. So I'm honored to be able to discuss it with you today.
Well, thank you. And just to get started, with this upcoming event we're having, it's going to be Thursday, April 9th at 8:30 in the morning to 11:30 in the morning. We're going to have 3 guest speakers, and we're going to start out with a delicious buffet breakfast for all attendees. And by the way, this is a free event, but we're going to talk about what's important today and what you will face if you're not already facing in the months, in the years to come. And the topic today more is toward how to be more proactive when it comes to life itself, which will happen to us. And that's unforeseen healthcare, that's assisted living, that's nursing homes, and all these very difficult decisions that you're going to be faced with. A good attorney friend of mine who we do a lot of speaking engagements together, he always opens up where he says, hey, I just read an updated study. And you know what the study says? 100% of us are going to die.
Yeah.
So, that shouldn't be a surprise. But also what's part of the study as well is 75 to 80% of us will be facing nursing homes, assisted living care. And for the most part, we're being reactive, not proactive. So that's where Terri comes in. So Terri, tell us a little about your background, your expertise, and kind of what you're seeing in our industry today.
Yeah, so about the last 15 years, I have been in kind of the senior-based world. I spent years in senior living communities. From there, I was interested a little bit more in end of life, so I became an end of life doula. I worked for hospice, and now I am with a full healthcare continuum. So we do a ton of support in those assisted living communities, those care homes. But now I'm on the side of a little bit more medical. So we do primary care, we do home health, we do hospice, we do palliative. So a lot more of the care side of it. So it's really interesting to take the experiences from both sides and marry them to see really what people can do to set themselves up for success in this, and set themselves up for some real solid decision making.
Well, Terri, can I ask you, maybe to explain to our listeners and viewers what an end of life doula is? Because I
Right.
think that that is such
Mhm.
a field that a lot of people don't know what it is, but it's
Mhm.
so unique. And
Yeah.
really, I would love to have that. So,
Mhm. Yep. I always say end of life doula is like everybody knows what a birth doula is. It's the
Mhm.
same thing, just on the
Right.
other side. So it's not a medical role. It really is the emotional and spiritual support for the patient, for the family. Um, the earlier, like anything, right? The earlier you can get involved, the better, because you can really work on some fantastic legacy work with the families, ensuring that the person who is dying really has an opportunity to build that end of life to be what they want it to be and have it look how
Mhm.
they want it to look. And so that's the idea of it, is to be support to the family, support to that patient, and then in addition to their hospice care supports and their
Yeah.
medical support.
And the timing of this conversation couldn't be any more important. Just 2 days ago, I had a sister-in-law who just passed away, and all the services. This is back in Missouri that
Yeah.
you just described, Terry, is exactly where they came into play. And wow, what a difference that made! I cannot imagine what my brother, my sister-in-law went
Mhm.
through. Up to the point where she passed away. But that's so important. But a lot of us, don't see, don't understand, don't know much about what you and a lot of other companies,
Yeah.
nationwide does. But what's some of the big challenges you're seeing today? Or if you could really just stand on the top of the mountain and say, please listen to me. What could you say to people to help them better prepare? Because I'm finding you see this, we
Mhm.
see this as well on our end. Most of us are reactive. We don't do anything, or we don't have to make any decisions until that time comes. And that can be very, very stressful.
Yeah. I would over and over say, have hard conversations. Have those hard conversations with your loved ones. Have those hard conversations with the people around you so that they know the things that are important to you. They can ask questions of you, and you really can support one another in doing research and in doing the looking to find what is it that you want to do. Is it assisted living? That is the answer eventually.
Right.
Um, everyone's answer is I want to die in my home. Well,
Mhm.
that's lovely, but the truth is most of us need some kind of medical support. So what does
Yeah.
that look like? Have those hard conversations. Don't be afraid of them. Don't push them off. And I'm sure you know this, but put it in writing. Please
Yeah.
put it in writing. Don't just tell your daughter, "You're my POA. You can take care of it." That's that's
Mhm.
that's my mom's theory on it. You got to make that stuff real. And my other piece that I'm really strong about is hospice is not for the last week of life. Let's really
Right.
talk about that. Yeah.
Mhm.
What you just mentioned, we do a lot of education on what we call enhanced planning, which,
Yeah.
encompasses all of what you just talked about. My estate planning friend and I do a lot of speaking engagements. And one thing that he shares is 75 to 80% of Americans that even have an estate plan, it's not properly funded and it's not
Mhm.
updated. And I'm
Yes.
sure you see that in your practice.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter. You don't have to have millions of dollars in order to have an estate plan. When my girls, I had two daughters, now they're 26 and 23. When they were 18 years old, became adults, the first thing that we did for them was power of attorneys.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. It's
And
so important.
one, big education reminder about a year ago, we had to move my in-laws out from Missouri to Arizona. My father-in-law had a severe stroke, perfect health before then. He was more the caretaker at that time for
Mhm.
my mother-in-law. And they had a lot of the planning in place, but still, we didn't have that hard conversation, or we tried to. Let me back up. We tried to, but they were in denial. We're
Yeah.
going to stay here. We're going to live in our house until we
Forever.
die. How many times have you heard that?
Every
And
time.
when this happened, within 3 days, 2 suitcases and 2 Bibles. They were on an airplane to Arizona from a house they lived in for 50 years, from a community they
Yeah.
were at for 80 years.
Oh,
And the stress that put on myself and my wife and her family. So that's why it's so important to, like you said, have these hard conversations, which we're having with people, and be proactive and do the right things. So estate planning, POAs, what
yeah.
else could you maybe inform our listeners to do to be more proactive and to minimize as much headaches as you can?
I would do your research early.
Okay,
When
good.
you look at assisted living, for example, it's it's such a hard decision to make when you are
Yes.
in crisis mode. It's so difficult. So when you have the opportunity to go out and to tour some of these communities and to take a look, make a list of what's important to you. There is a big difference between the large communities and the smaller care homes. Understand the difference between those. Go out, take a look, get an idea of places you would like to be. And then after you have that list, if it's, we've gone 2 years now and you've had a list, I would go back and look again and research, because things change, staffing changes, management groups change. Make sure that those answers are still the answers for you.
I just want to point out too, Terri, you mentioned in crisis mode, and your mindset is completely different when you are in that
Oh,
need mode versus let's check it out before we are in need, because your mindset and the way that you view things are completely shifted. And so I love that you mentioned, maybe touring it or giving it a try and doing all the research before you're in need, because then you will see it as a widened view of maybe this is a good thing or maybe it's not, and we don't need to make a decision right now.
yep. It's so important. And tying into taking a look at places and having the hard conversations.
Right.
I spent years in senior living helping families make those decisions. And
Mhm.
I will never forget, there are two families that stick out so much, but there was one family that the dad, um, his dementia was really progressing, and he had a
Right.
conversation with his daughters years ago when he first got diagnosed. And he said, regardless of what I tell you years from now, when it is too hard to take care of me at home, you have to put me in a community. You have
Right.
to move
Yeah.
me. And of course, who he is today, which was 8 years later, I'm not going to move. I'm staying in my home.
Yep.
Yes.
And I will remember those daughters sitting there, and the younger daughter was like, I don't know if we should do this. Dad is saying he doesn't want to move. And the
Right.
older daughter saying, no, you remember what he said to us. He
Mhm.
told us this is what we were supposed to do. And I just thought, what a beautiful gift to give,
Mhm.
to reassure your family that you are doing exactly what I need you to do. And I know it's a hard thing to do. And I know who I am today might not be saying it, but this is the right decision. And then the
Well,
flip side is the families that have never had that conversation, and they're struggling and they're so scared.
mhm.
They don't want to do the wrong thing for their loved one, and it's really
Right.
hard.
Yeah. And I'm just so glad that you bring up, memory care, because there's a lot of people now, the statistics are going up and there's more with Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, and it's
Mhm.
such a crucial conversation because you are essentially grieving for years with that person still alive. And I think your mindset, the way that you view things, you want the best for them. And like you just said in that story, the dad's mind isn't there. That's not who he is. And so you're in the process of grieving him when he's still right in front of you. And just you got to get a somewhat of a clear mind when making those decisions.
Yep. And
So true. What you just talked about, the two of you, is what I lived. And you didn't know this. We never talked about this
yeah.
before, but years ago, my father had early onset dementia and Alzheimer's.
Mm,
And we knew it wasn't a question if, it's just a question of when he was going to have to go into a nursing home. Terry, he said the same thing to us. And God
yeah.
bless my mom. She was the most amazing caretaker as long as she could, but we
Yes.
had to make that decision to put my father into a nursing home.
Yeah.
Thank God that we did the planning years before, because he was in the best nursing home facility in Southeast Missouri and got the best care. He passed away 3 years ago, but you're right, Jaclyn, the stress that
Yes.
puts
Oh,
on family members, not only mom, but all of my brothers and sisters too. And I'll never forget, not to, you know, bring the show down and make it more sadder, but time after time, when my dad was completely, not in his right mind, he would just cry, "Please get me out of here."
Mm-hmm.
But
oh,
I knew, and my family and my mom knew this was the right place for him.
Yeah.
mhm,
But thank God for the early conversations. But as we're talking about this, one of the top concerns with most of our clients today, our average client's age is about 70 years of age, is unforeseen healthcare expenses
yeah,
and the cost, which Terry,
Yes.
I'm sure you're very familiar with, whether
mhm,
it's assisted living, whether it's long-term, skilled, memory, it's
mhm.
very pricey.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
expensive.
that's another area that Cooper Financial is doing a really good job and being very proactive, because there's several strategies out there, not long-term care coverage, different than that will pay in-home health care, assisted living care, skilled or memory care when that time comes, if it comes in your life, that can help offset a lot of those costs.
Yeah.
Just a good example, my in-laws, we moved them a year ago to Gilbert, Arizona. They're in one of the nicest assisted care facilities. Thank God it's not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God they did a good job of planning in their life to make that possible. But Terry, what advice would you give to people out there, especially the ones you've talked to, that, wow, mom and dad maybe just doesn't have the money or the resources to make those decisions?
Oh my goodness, that's so
It's
hard.
hard, isn't it?
It's if you're in a place right now, even even if it's at 70, if that's the client,
Yes.
to really stop and look and have that conversation with your financial planner to figure out how to set aside, how to budget for any dollars towards it. It will change your experience. It will change where you can go. It will change the stress level in your families. It's so
Amen.
hard to watch families try to come together to figure out, I can give this much money. I have 1,000, I have 1,000. Okay, we can figure this out and try to figure it out, for mom, for dad. I so strongly suggest whatever that conversation is with your financial planner, have it open, have it honest, and it's going to cost more than you think it's going to cost. I promise you.
And I think even incorporating your kids, like you just mentioned, in
Oh,
that conversation, because,
yep.
I even think about, I mean, you tell me, Terry, if I'm wrong when I say this, but a lot of kids might offer up, "Hey, you can stay with me," or "We'll take care
Mhm.
of you," or "We'll
For
do
sure.
this." And, it might be good for a short term or to figure out, kind of where you wanna go and how it will work mentally. But those are the conversations that need to be had with your children as well as your financial advisor.
Absolutely. I have told my mother many times, you can stay with myself or my sister as
Uh-huh.
long as it's safe for you to be home.
Yes.
As soon as
Right.
it's not safe, the conversation's over.
Yeah.
So,
And
and that's a hard conversation to have with with your mom, with your dad. It's
Yeah.
hard.
it is. Jacqueline, you just hit that right. Such an
Mhm.
important part. Just this past Friday, we had a meeting with two of our clients in their 80s. They had all their children there. They wanted to make
Good.
sure that their children understood where they were at financially, what
Yeah.
planning they
Mhm.
had in their estate plan, what they wanted as far as assisted living or long-term care when that time comes. And I just applaud them and just, said, this is amazing. This is what we're trying to encourage all of our clients to do. And then, like Terry and other strategic partners we have, bring them in to offer even more knowledge and wisdom and resources. But like you said earlier, Terry, being proactive, start doing your research
Mhm.
early. And that really ties into the event. One thing I can promise you, if you attend the event, is there's going to be so much information and education, but also unlimited resources
Mhm.
Yeah.
from all the speakers.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
I've got a
So,
whole checklist and resource guide for everyone. So,
yes. And, you know, a lot of times people will ask, well, Brad, you've been in the financial industry, investments, insurance, tax planning, estate planning for years. Why are you focused so much on this type of event? And by the way, this is going to be one of probably 2 or 3 events yearly we're going to be doing for not only our clients, but also the public. Uh,
mhm.
there's been study after study. We talked a little bit about this before the show. Study after study that shows that statistic wise, husbands most likely will die before their wives.
Yes.
Mhm.
Number one. Number two, the study went on to say that the widows may live anywhere from 8 to 12 years longer in life. Now, let's go back to maybe Terri, you
Mhm.
and my grandparent generation, Jaclyn, your great grandparents, since you're a little bit younger, that generation on average, not everyone, the man made the decisions.
Yep.
Mhm.
And what we're seeing, and Terri, I'm going to have you add to this here in a second.
Mhm.
What we're seeing in our office, we have lost in the last 6 months about 5 clients to death.
Yeah.
And what we do is we'll bring in the widow or widower with their family, with our estate planning attorney, with our CPA, hold their hand through this process and walk them through the steps because number one, I cannot imagine, which I've almost been there many times, losing a spouse, but losing a spouse and dealing with the financial end too, which that's another show, another nightmare we could
Mhm.
talk about. But, you know, what other advice would you give on that topic, Terri, as far as, dealing maybe with a lot of widows? And what do you see in your industry?
You know what's so hard is the number of widows who have never paid a bill before, right? You
Wow.
look at that, like my grandparents' generation, right?
Yes.
They've never paid a bill before. They have no idea how to do anything with a checking account. They are 100% lost. I remember having a little lady I talked to who had never put gas in a vehicle before, and she was
Wow.
84 years old.
Mhm.
So I think, having those conversations, again, they're so hard to have. And I know I keep saying having the conversations, but really, having those conversations with your parents of, mom, dad, you're not both going to be here forever. There are certain things that we have to talk about. Dad, you have to be able to make yourself a sandwich. Mom's not always going to be able to do it. Mom, you
Right.
have to be able to pay the cable bill, so having those conversations. And if it's something that they just don't want to do, then there's another conversation of now do we look at maybe an independent living community for when mom or dad dies if
Right.
that the other spouse
Mhm.
is still in good health, able to, able-bodied, don't need help really with cares, but don't want to learn or a little obstinate maybe to learn how to take care of themselves in that way.
Yeah, because
Having conversations.
you think that you'll never have to. You think that
Absolutely.
you're in just this blind mode of, "I will
Yep.
never have to deal with that. I'll be, the first one gone." That's always the argument
Mhm.
between my parents is, "I
Yep.
wanna be the first one. I don't wanna be the
Yep.
second."
That's
Yep.
me, my wife.
Mhm. Yep.
Yes.
But
Always. Always.
that what gives me peace of mind that I've been married for this August will be 35 years, high school sweethearts of 42
Wow.
Wow.
years.
That's sweet.
However, what gives me peace of mind, and we practice what we preach,
Mhm,
knowing that our estate plan's in place, our
mhm,
finances in order. If I die first, I know, and when I put my head on the pillow each night, I know that my wife, my daughters, my grandchildren will be taken care of. And then as we progress and then get older, if I have to face assisted living care or nursing home, we
mhm,
have all that planned out. And like you said, Terry, earlier, which is so important, the first start is to have that difficult conversation and talk about what you
Mhm.
want to do now, but revisit that on
mhm,
a regular basis because things do change. I'll never forget, I have a strategic partner that used to work with the state of Arizona. And one of her jobs was she had to travel all over the state of Arizona to inspect nursing homes and
Mhm.
assisted living care facilities. Very interesting. And about that time, several years ago, I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about maybe trying to get my mom and dad out here. Could you give me some recommendations for some really great assisted living or nursing homes?" And she
Mhm.
laughed at me. She said,
Oh,
there's no such thing as great, but there is good.
mhm.
And you want to do your research because don't mix up high price, high costs with excellent care. You pricing this,
Absolutely.
Terry, in your
Yep.
practice as well. She gave me a good example. I'm not going to mention towns, but a small town in Arizona, I could point you to that direction where the cost is half or a third compared to everyone else. Now, the building may not be beautiful, may not be made of granite and inside, but the care is excellent because the turnover in care, which I'm seeing with my in-laws and my mom, who's in assisted living care as well, it is high turnover. So
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen that many times in your career when it comes to planning.
It's why it's so important that if the individual themselves are able to go out and to kind of pre-tour these communities, because
Yes.
one thing I really noticed when I worked in assisted living is the very, very fancy buildings. And I worked in a new build, fancy building years ago, and it had all the bells and whistles. And that was very, very impressive for the children
Wow.
who were coming in with the parents.
Hmm.
But the parents themselves who were going to be living there did not care about that stuff.
Yeah.
Really?
They did.
Really.
They wanted to know food, they wanted to
Yep.
know activities, they wanted to know about the other people who lived there. It was so much more about community to them
Hmm.
than fancy chandeliers and pianos and ice cream
True.
parlors. And
Yes.
so it was very interesting, the stuff that, children were like, "Oh, this is amazing." And the parents were like, "No, that doesn't really matter to me."
Yeah. Well, Terry, from your experience too, how are wait lists? How does that
Yes.
work? Because I feel from my experience, wait lists, if you're not being proactive and you're not looking into it, you could be on a wait list for a few years.
I would really look at that in memory care. That's a really
Hmm.
interesting thing. Having kind of contingency plans in memory care, right? Because when people make the decision to move to memory care, it's a right now need. Nobody decides a year ahead of time to do that. So having a few in mind that I'd be interested in, because you are right, they get full, and then
Hmm.
it's a waiting game to see when a room opens, and that might be tomorrow, and that might be in 18 months.
Yeah.
So having a few in mind that you really like and and you're comfortable with is really important. Yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dad, that I know, Terry, you have a lot of experience and expertise where you can help direct people the directions to go. That's not your full-time job, right? However, we are going to have a transitionalist, expert at the event,
Yeah.
and that person does, all the work for you. If you're at that stage now of identifying assisted living, skilled, memory, locations, budgets, they will do that at no cost and
Mhm.
provide all the resources and information. So, well, I am so excited, Terry, for you to, speak. This will be the first time I've had the privilege and honor of hearing you speak at the event, and give a lot more information. And again, Terry and her company will have a table with abundant amount of resources too. But
Yeah.
let me just get a recap real quick on this event and how you can register. This is a free event. It's going to be Thursday, April 9th. It's going to be from 8:30 in the morning to 11:30. It's going to be at the Colby Falls Wedgwood Event Center, Crossroads or Greenfield and Baseline. And we're going to have three guest speakers, Terry being one of the three experts. And the event is just all about empowering women and their spouses, if you're married, on all these topics that we just discussed and a lot more. You can go to cooperevent.com, cooperevent.com for more information to sign up. And we would love to see you there. And I can promise you that all attendees will be overwhelmed and surprised too with all the information they're going to receive that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Terry, it has been a
Yes.
pleasure to have you on the show today. And, just learning from really the major life transitions that we should all be preparing for, and it's never too early. And it's just so important to learn and just have those conversations. It all starts somewhere, and it's never too late to start that. So thank you. And that does it for this episode of Financial Armor with our host, Brad Cooper.
Thank you.
Thank you.